So you've been doing excellent work lately at your job. You've been doing an excellent job collaborating with your team members, and your team lead has made sure that your management knows about your hard work. With your help, the project has been driven to completion with high praises from the client. And now comes the time to talk about your next job. You sit down with your manager and you both agree that you think it's about time for the next step in your career. So your next project will be a solo one. You're going to be the sole person with the responsibility for communications with the clients and any deliverables related to the project. You walk out of that meeting feeling excited and ready for this next step, but then you realize this is the first time that you've been solely responsible for a project, and you start to wonder, where do I even start? Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tyler Warlow, and I go by The Mengineer. I make videos on how to improve your life through your confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. In today's video, I want to talk about some of my own personal tips that I have for going on to your first independent project. I'll be talking about some of my personal experiences as well as the advice that I've personally received. If that sounds interesting to you at all, let's go ahead and jump into the video. The first thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and review your project and your client. This is going to involve going over any preliminary materials that you might have available to start learning what you can about the project. And this might involve a conversation with your manager or team lead in order to figure out where to get those preliminary materials. This may involve things such as the scope of the project as well as any drawings or deadlines that may have already been set. It's important to obtain as much understanding about the project as you can before you meet the client. That way, when you finally do go ahead and meet the client, it allows you to start off by hitting the ground running and tends to make a pretty good impression. Some of the common things that I recommend looking into are who is the project team that you're going to be working with and what is the management structure of that team. What do your clients do? Do they offer a service or do they make a product? If they do make multiple things, what is a team that you're going to be working with specifically focusing on? Next, you're going to want to go through any procedures, guidelines, or trainings that you can beforehand. If you do solid research, it's going to make you look extremely knowledgeable to the client, and first impressions really do make a difference. First impressions can always be pretty impactful, so it's important to get started off on the right foot. The next thing I'm going to say is that if you are performing a service, I recommend showing your face in person as often as you possibly can. Now, I recognize that not every project kind of has this requirement or even ability to do so, but this also goes for virtual meetings. By showing up in person to these client sites or even having your face present in these virtual meetings, you are demonstrating to the client that you care about the success of this project. Being in person also allows you to have a much more engaging experience with the client. In other words, you might be going through stuff and realize that you have some questions. It's going to be much easier to ask those questions if you can walk up to the person themselves and ask them rather than having to write an email or some sort of Teams message. Additionally, it also gives you the opportunity to get to know the client a little bit better in and of itself. And you can start to develop a relationship outside of the work environment. Show up on time consistently and engage with the client. For example, I once had a client ask me how long I had been working. And when I told them I had only been working for about a year, they were extremely surprised. They said based on my level of knowledge and how professionally I handled myself, they thought that I had been in the industry for at least 5 years. Showing up consistently, engaging with the client, and being professional will get you far in pretty much anywhere. Clients really like to see someone who is being actively engaged and cares about the success of the project. Speaking of being engaged, if you like this video or you find it informational at all so far, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us to grow and the information to reach new people. Thank you so much, and now let's continue. The next tip that I'm going to give everyone is try to get as clear as possible as to what your project's deadlines are going to be. I recommend sitting down and going through the different deliverables for your project. This is the time to determine the amount of time that you think that each deliverable is going to take you, as well as the deadlines. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask them. You want to get crystal clear on that timeline, and you also want to determine if the scope of your work is going to impact any other activities or if there are any other activities that can impact your scope of work. For example, on one of the most recent projects that I've worked on, there was not a very firm deadline placed on the scope of work that I was working on. The problem being was the documentation that I had to work on directly impacted our ability to do testing in the future. So I sat down with the client and any other third parties that were involved, and we established a timeline that would work well for everyone. This also allowed us to sit down and identify any potential roadblocks to getting the work done, which then allowed me to reach out to people to help anticipate and get whatever I needed to go around those roadblocks. But what about y'all? How did y'all manage your deliverables and tasks in the past? Did you rely on your project lead, or was there some sort of tool that you like to use? Let me know with a comment down below. I like to hear from each and every one of you and try to respond to everyone. But with that said, the next thing that I'm going to say is make sure that you are doing good and productive work. Show your initiative and work hard. You are the representation of your company. So if you're caught goofing off or playing around, it's not going to reflect very well upon your company. There's a couple things that can go into this. First off, you want to aim to get your deliverables done as soon as you possibly can. If you are encountering roadblocks, you need to be demonstrating that you are trying to resolve them. I personally recommend using email for these types of communications because it generates a paper trail of your communications that you can point back to and say, look, I have been trying. This shows the client that you've actually been making an effort rather than just ignoring problems and letting the deadlines fall to the wayside. Next off, make sure that you're taking initiative with your project. If you notice something that needs fixed or needs done, try to bring attention to it. And if it's something that falls within your ability and scope to do so, just go ahead and fix it. Clients really enjoy seeing that they have someone that they can work with that is going to help resolve problems rather than pushing them off onto someone else later down the line. Because usually that approach ends up generating more headaches and issues when you do finally get to them. Additionally, look for things that your clients are having trouble with that you can help out with. If you notice that you're running low on a little bit of work or you're having a slow day and your client has a heartache about something else, offer to help them out on it. For example, let's say that a client has a ton of documents that they need to review. Maybe help and offer to help review the documents for them. One thing about taking the initiative and doing things outside of scope is that you need to be cautious about this. You need to make sure that you check with your project lead or project manager to ensure that this is going to be okay to do and that you're not just burning hours on something that is not related to the project. But the final thing I'm going to say, and potentially one of the biggest things that I'm going to say when it comes to your first solo project, is make sure that you are taking the time to build relationships. Take the time to get to know your client a little bit better. Doing this has a few different benefits. Firstly, it's going to make you personally more memorable. This means that further down the road, if the client ends up encountering other problems, they may end up thinking of you and reach out to you to help them resolve them. Secondly, in my opinion, it helps to make the work life a little bit more enjoyable. You get to know your client on a little bit more of a personal level, which gives you the opportunity to talk about things outside of just work. This can lead to higher levels of friendliness and deeper levels of trust between you and the client. And a lot of times this can result in less micromanaging and a lot more freedom to do your work because your client trusts you. But that's it, guys. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you enjoyed the video or found it to be helpful or informative at all, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any of your own thoughts, ideas, or opinions, be sure to leave a comment down below, as I like to read as many of them as possible. If you're interested in more videos where I talk about career-related topics, be sure to check out this video where I talk about managing multiple projects. If you're interested in more of my most recent stuff, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is the Mengineer, signing off.